In this video, I'm going to give you a really simple trick you can use if you struggle to hear what you're doing when you're working with an equalizer. So if you're wondering how to use an EQ, but you can't actually hear the little nuances and the subtle changes that you're making when you're playing around with an equalization plugin, then watch this video. Hey, Rob here from Musician on a Mission. Hope you're having a great day. So something that I hear a lot from my students and from comments here and all over the place is that people really struggle with EQ because they can't actually hear the little changes they're making when they're playing around with it, or they can't even hear the changes in tutorial videos, so they don't really know what's going on. And in addition to that, I also get some people who wonder like, hey, how do I know what the right frequency to cut or boost is? And then how do I know how much to boost or cut it by? How much is too much if I'm trying to make a vocal sound kind of more airy? At what point does it actually become too much and I'm making it sound like brittle and thin? So 3 really big questions here. What do I do if I can't hear what I'm doing? How do I know which frequency to cut or boost? And then how do I know how much to cut or boost by? So this trick that I'm about to show you here will help with those 3 things. It's not going to completely solve them, but I think it is going to set you in the right direction. What you want to do is boost or cut something until you can actually hear it, until it's really obvious and you can hear it to your ears and you can hear what it's doing, and then you back it off. And it's that simple. You do it too much and then you back it off. And this applies to a lot of effects as well. You can do this with reverb, whatever you want, but it really helps with EQ as well. So let's start by having a listen to this track. Okay, so we've got kind of like a gang vocal sound. There's some quite heavy, prominent background vocals. This is the vocal bus that we're going to work on. And to me, it's sounding a little bit thin. So before you do any of this, you want to decide what you're trying to achieve. You don't want to just kind of start playing around with this randomly. If you're really, really stuck, then you could do that. But you want to take a problem-solving approach where you're just thinking, okay, what does this need? And in this case, the vocal to me sounds a little bit thin. I think we can make it sound a bit thicker. So once you've got that intention, the next step is just add too much. I'm just going to add loads of bottom end. I'm going to play around with the frequency and see how it sounds. And I'm going to do this not in solo first, because that's what I want the context of the mix for this. But then I'm going to solo it as well so you can hear what's going on. I don't even wanna go, 'cause this feeling is impossible. So that's starting to sound a bit boxy around here, but getting closer to 100, it sounded like it was kind of adding some body to it without making it sound just like weird. Let's do that in solo. I don't even wanna go, 'cause this feeling is impossible. I just really wanna dance alright. So that's not really the characteristic we're looking for. Let's try something near 100. I don't even wanna go, 'cause this feeling is impossible. I just really want. So that is the kind of body that I'm looking for. Let's try making this a bit thinner first, because we're adding just loads of other stuff as well. Let's see if we can kind of add some body without just making it sound that kind of weird boxy sound. I don't even wanna go, 'cause this feeling is impossible. I just really wanna dance alright. Okay, so that should be audible. If you can't hear that, then you need to kind of just boost even more, which isn't actually possible in this plugin, so I don't know how you'd go about that. I really hope that you can hear the difference there, because that's as extreme as we can go. And just something else to bear in mind, with all of this, the more you do this, the more developed your ears become. There's nothing we can really do to replace that experience and that skill that you'll gain in time, just as your hearing develops. Your ears don't change, it's just kind of more inside your brain, how you actually pinpoint and pick out different aspects of the sound. That improves. There's some tools out there that will really help with that. We're going to get back to that later, but I hope you can hear that. So now we're going to start again. We're going to keep bringing it up until we can actually hear the difference, and then I'm going to back it off a bit. I don't even wanna go, 'cause this feeling is impossible. I just really wanna dance alright, and you know. So around there, to me, is where it starts to become really audible, and we can do a quick comparison here. I don't even wanna go, 'cause this feeling is impossible. I just
just really wanna dance alright, and you know I'm a beacon in the night.
So that's adding some noise. So now let's just start cleaning this up a bit, and we kind of had a good point there, so let's just kind of back that off a bit.
I don't even wanna go, 'cause this feeling is impossible. I just really wanna dance alright, and you know I'm a beacon in the. I don't even wanna go, I don't even wanna go.
So that's quite an aggressive boost, but because there's not much going on in the vocal, it's a female vocal, I imagine if this was a male vocal, we'd hear a much bigger difference boosting, 100 hertz by like 7, 8 dB. But that's actually fine in this context, that works. This isn't a move I do that often on vocals, I'm usually doing the opposite, but in this case, and often more so with female vocals at least, you do want to add a bit of body there. So to me, that's noticeable. Now let's check it in the mix.
I don't even wanna go.
So now in the mix, it's going to be trickier, and generally you do want to avoid the solo button, but if you're really, really new to this, just play around with stuff in solo so you can actually hear what's going on. And if you just want to check things in solo, that's fine. You just want to try and do things in the context of the mix, but I understand that when you're new to this, that can be near impossible because you can't actually hear what you're doing. So you can kind of like do things in the context of the mix, but then check them in solo, or you can kind of like just sit down and play around with EQ for a while in solo so you get used to what you're doing. But you always want to check things in the mix, and as you get more experience, avoid that solo button as much as possible. I also think this vocal now could use a bit more top end as well, so we're going to do the exact same thing quicker this time. I'm going to start by boosting it too much and then back it off a bit.
I don't even wanna go, 'cause this feeling is impossible. I just really wanna dance alright, and you know I'm a beacon in the night. I don't even wanna go, I don't even wanna go, I don't even wanna.
There we go. So that's definitely adding some airiness and some clarity. I feel like it's kind of bringing out the sibilance a bit more. You can hear those S's, so I'm then just going to add a tiny bit of a cut to counteract that. And again, what we can do is cut too much to find the area we want to cut and then back it off.
I don't even wanna go, 'cause this feeling is impossible. I just really wanna dance alright, and you know I'm a beacon in the night. We don't even wanna go home. I don't even wanna go.
So there you go. I've talked about this trick before, and I actually have a name for this. It's called turning it up to 11. If anyone can remember that scene from This Is Spinal Tap where they turn the amp up to 11, it's kind of like that. We're turning it up to 11, as in like going too far so that we can actually hear the difference that it's making, and then we're just going to back it off a bit. And like I said, you can do the same with reverb. You can just bring it up till you can hear it, and then it's going to be really noticeable to your ears and also to the listener's ears, and then you just back it off a touch, because that's where it's going to be in that sweet spot where it is changing the sound, but it's not going to be too drastic. Now, just a few caveats to this approach. You can do aggressive EQ, that's absolutely fine. Maybe you boost it to 11, and as in like go way too far, and that's actually what works, in which case just stick with that. But if you're wanting to do something that's a bit more subtle, you're just not really sure exactly what frequency it is, and you're not sure how much or how little, turn it too far, find the frequency, then back it off a bit. It's really that simple. And then one last thing I'd add to this is your ears will develop. I kind of mentioned this earlier. There are ear training tools out there you can try. One quite good one is Sound Gym. Go and check that out, because the more you use those tools, or just the more you mix and the more you sit down and practice using EQ, the better your ears get, the easier all of this gets. So there you go. That's kind of like a surface level trick or tip that you can use to help with that. Obviously though, these problems with just understanding EQ and really getting the strategy behind it and knowing exactly what works and what doesn't, what frequencies to cut or boost, all of that stuff is way more complex than I could cover in a 10-minute video. We're actually working on a brand new EQ course that's coming out on the 11th of November November. So take note of that date and sign up for the waiting list in the description or on screen now if you want to get more information about that course and what it's going to cover and how to get access. Basically, it's going to go really, really deep into EQ and give you everything you need to know. So if you want to feel really comfortable with this tool, it's going to be by far the quickest and easiest way to get to that place. And since it's the plugin that you're using most when you're mixing, I think that's going to have a really big knock-on impact on the quality of your mixes, but just also how fun and enjoyable that experience of mixing is. So that's happening on the 11th of November. If you want more information, go and sign up for the waiting list. That's all for today. I'll see you again soon. And remember, create regardless.